Verso ending is the true ending. For me, there's unfortunately only one good ending because it's impossible to defend the Maelle ending. Process her grief my ass, her entire body is in pain. How is she supposed to process that? Therapy? Verso's ending kills off an entire world of sentient beings. How is that happy? Okay, that's the clue I needed. They actually didn't get what they were writing. I don't know about that comment, but the debate around which ending is good or bad in Expedition 33 is absolutely insane. Many people have their own thoughts on which ending should be canon, but to be honest, there is no such canon ending to this story. There's just an ending that you choose and the characters have to deal with the consequences within themselves. With that being said, I'm not calling anybody out. Everyone is allowed to have their own opinions and interpretations of what these endings could be, which is a good and which is a bad ending. But I just want to explain how there's a little bit more to that. Maybe you did not quite understand what the endings were trying to tell you.
Since the beginning, we knew we wanted two endings. I know I didn't want any to be really good in a way. Like you have some pros and cons in both. The fact that there is no dialogue also leaves a lot open to interpretation, and people can project what they want on the ending, and I think it's something that is really important.
That is Guillaume Broche, the director of Expedition 33. He explains why the endings are the way they are and how it offers players a choice, which itself is an impossible choice, and there's no such thing as a good or a bad choice.
People that are so messed up by grief and a ton of other things that they take very wrong decisions for very good reasons.
So by the end of the game, you have realized that Verso in reality is dead because he saved Maelle from that burning room, and somehow the writers, so to speak, were involved. It's a big loss for the family, and Aline, the mother, decided to deal with this grief by living inside a painting which Verso made in the first place. The painting still has a piece of his soul, and the mother just wants to see her son again. To some degree, she might be blaming Alicia for what happened to Verso, and that's why you see Alicia being the exact same in her facial structure as it is in the reality. That's just unfortunate. This is the way Aline chose to deal with grief, but she didn't realize that by living in the past and wanting to live with her son in any way she can is basically destroying herself and her family. And to be honest, how can Aline at this point even think about that? Because she's obviously thinking about herself, something that she lost. Renoir, on the other hand, wants his family back, wants all of them to go through this together instead of breaking the family apart. Maelle, after realizing who she is, also wants the same thing, to have Verso around her. But at this point, she also has others, Gustave, Lune, Ciel, and everybody else in this world of Lumiere that she also wants to live in. A place where she can feel whole and she can feel better, because in reality, her life is completely destroyed. A burnt face, a missing eye, not able to speak, and also a brother that is no longer there. And I'm sure in many ways she must be blaming herself for Verso's passing. Maelle is going through a traumatic experience, and so is her family, but we are seeing only from the perspective of Maelle most of the time. She doesn't feel like living in the real world, but in the painted world, she can. Can you imagine how hard it is to live with everything that has happened to you? How can you possibly live in a world that makes you feel that way? For anyone who's going through loss, we all do, unfortunately, whether it's circumstantial or natural. If you had the chance to meet your loved ones again, to talk to them again, the ones you lost, you will take that decision in a heartbeat. A lot of people start taking substances, smoking and drinking to deal through this pain. Some others get lost in the past and don't do anything with their life, essentially destroying their life. For others, they try to move on, and eventually they do. But that process is so hard that it's difficult to choose that path. That's exactly what Maelle is going through, and that's what this ending is trying to show you. For her own sake, she wants to choose this life because it gives her everything that she doesn't have. But at the same time, there's a cost, and that is her own life. She might be living with all these people and her brother, but she is giving her life away. And maybe she knows that, and she's still okay with it because at least she gets to live a good life. So the ending of Maelle is showing the good thing what Maelle will get, but also the bad thing that she will get as well. And that's where the jump scare comes in. The jump scare moment that shows how Maelle is dying, the camera cuts to Verso, and it's almost as if the game's showing you that Verso feels helpless and he's seeing his sister die right in front of him. Many people have spoken on how that jump scare moment gives you the idea that this is a bad ending. Well, that's not exactly the case, because the ending is trying to show you the bad and the good. Before the black and white scene happened, you're seeing the good side of the ending. Everybody is back. Everybody have smiles on their faces. People are happy. Maelle is happy. And then it turns to Verso, where you know, based on the ending, he's not happy. In the same way, when you first saw Maelle's flashback for the very first time, you know that scene is a little bit concerning. You're a little bit on edge. And that is exactly what this scene was trying to show you, because it's trying to show you from the perspective of Verso in a way, telling you that Maelle is dying. And this is a very horrifying thing. And that's why there's this horrifying jump scare moment. Because of this, many people believe that Verso's ending is the good ending. But it isn't really a good ending per se. But for whom is it not a good ending? Well, for the entire family, it's not a good ending. Especially Aline and Alicia. For a mother to go through this is insanely hard. How can she go by living her life where her child is no longer there? So you can understand and sympathize with her with the decision she took earlier, but at the same time, you seeing it from the outside, know what's gonna happen. The same is the case with Alicia. How can you go by living because you could see Verso and you could talk to him in that painted world, and now you cannot? This ending basically shows that the family has to start the healing process, and it's going to be very difficult, but it's a start. This lasts only for a period of time, but for the people who are dealing with this, it feels like eternity. For them, it's like, how will I live for the next few hours or end this day in the best way I can? Let alone thinking about how can I live tomorrow. The good thing about this ending is now they can actually live their lives. Now there's a possibility of having more, living for their loved ones, and hopefully one day living for themselves. And then hopefully later experiencing life as they should. So Verso's ending is showing how these people should live their lives without killing themselves, but at a cost of dealing with the loss of Verso, which began this whole thing in the first place. And it's even worse for Alicia, because she's not only losing her brother, but now she's losing everyone she ever met in Lumiere. Gustave, Lune, Ciel, everybody. So she has to lose even more. Now for Alicia, imagine how can she possibly lose all of this on top of the fact that she has lost her face, she cannot speak, she's probably seen differently by her mother. There's so many things. So that's why, in what way Maelle could have chosen this side of her life. And that's why for Maelle, we have that ending, because Maelle will go with this. But for Verso, we have this ending because as people on the other side, and as Verso who cares for Maelle, you would want her to live her life. Verso, even though he's painted, realizes this, that his family needs to live on and not get destroyed by his absence. There's so much talent and life to live. That is literally what he said to Maelle at the ending.
You've got this incredible power to paint. You'll never have to suffer a life you don't want.
He knows he's gone and he feels like a prisoner, because of which his family members are also being imprisoned. He doesn't want to live a life where he's seeing his family members lose themselves and die. That's why in Maelle's ending, he says he doesn't want to live this life.
I don't want this life.
Because Verso, even without really wanting anyone to die in the world of Lumiere, knows that this is the only way his family can start living. But of course, many people call it a genocide, that the entire population of Lumiere in that painting is being destroyed. But for Verso, that is not reality. The actual reality, lives outside the painting. The best example is this movie, Inception. Cobb's wife at some point has this delusional thought that the dream world is the reality. Whereas Cobb obviously wanted her to live in the reality instead of the dream world, but is unable to do that, and he loses her. In the same way, the reality is outside of the painting, and Verso knows it. And so of course Verso will choose reality, because he knows if anybody wants, they can paint these lives again. For Verso's ending, the music is a bittersweet and emotional, and it needs to have that so that it can show you that you are losing all these people. And this time, instead of killing Maelle or Alicia, is the start of healing process. And that's why the music doesn't have jump scares in it or a tense moment, because it's an emotional goodbye. It's almost as if Verso is saying, I'm so sorry, I wish the things were different. But there's also another person who is dealing with all of this. It's us. We have lived with the people of Lumiere from the very beginning to the very end. We know the family the least. We know all the people of Lumiere the most. We have lived with them, we got to know them, we got to laugh and cry. We got attached to these characters. So for us, it's much harder to choose Verso's ending, because we're essentially killing everybody that we love. And many people are only seeing this one perspective and not the other side. Another best example to describe what I'm trying to say is The Last of Us. Joel chose to be selfish and save Ellie, even though Ellie's surgery could have actually saved a few people's lives. But he chose to save his daughter because he didn't want to lose another daughter again. For Joel, as a parent at that time, could not see the other perspective or the other side. He could only see one side of things. And in the same way, a lot of people consider only one side of things and do not see why Maelle's ending is the way it is, and why for someone who is dealing with this grief, will probably choose Maelle's ending. In the end, these endings are not talking about what's good or bad. There's a lot of good and a lot of bad in each of these endings. That's the unfortunate part about grief. Everyone deals with them completely differently, and many people lose their lives because of it. And the other person wishes that they could just live their life and moved on. And for many others, they do move on, and much later realize that that decision that they took of moving on was the best decision they took. So yeah, the game is fucked up to make us go through this. And why is it fucked up though? Well, I'll allow the director himself, Guillaume, to say why it's all fucked up.
I like really sad stories.
You can check out the full conversation with the director of the game by clicking the video on the screen, and also check out all the interviews I've done with the cast of Expedition 33.